Can Zhen Huan, blessed with both beauty and talent, truly outshine all in the imperial harem and enjoy everlasting favor? The efficiency of those serving before the emperor is unparalleled. By the time I left Feng Shui's side, only half of the guards stationed at Kunjitang remained. Jinxi, supporting me by the hand, took a slow walk out, noticing the deep night. Deliberately taking a longer route, we finally returned to the house behind the artificial mountain in Shangling Garden. After changing into a maid's attire, I quietly followed Jinxi back to Kunjitang. It was precisely the time for the guard shift change. The commotion caused by Empress Hua earlier had left many exhausted. With Xianling withdrawing half of the guards, the remaining ones appeared much more relaxed. Feng Ruo, following orders, had already distributed the food I was supposed to give to Meizhuang to the night guards, adding a certain amount of sleeping drug. It wasn't long before the guards became drowsy. We sneaked in quietly. Feng Ruo and Xiao Lianzi were already waiting inside. In a low voice, Xiao Lianzi said, "My lady was right. Not long after you left, she went through the side door of the rear hall to Chao Jieyu's palace." I gasped, feeling a mix of shock, anger, and disappointment surge to my chest despite having suspected her. I remained silent, likely looking very upset, which made Xiao Lianzi visibly anxious. He asked, "Should I detain her first, my lady?" I tried to calm my turbulent breath and said quietly, "No need. Just make sure they act as if nothing happened." Xiao Lianzi was taken aback but complied. "Yes." I then said, "You can go back first. I'll deal with her personally." Xiao Lianzi bowed and withdrew, saying, "I've moored the boat deep within the lotus pond, so your return should not attract attention." I nodded, and after he left, I grasped Feng Ruo's arm tightly and said, "Aunt, thank you." Tears shimmered in Feng Ruo's eyes. "My lady, such words would be the death of me. It's my duty to serve you ever since I was in your father's mansion." Kunjitang was a place I knew well, moving through its halls and rooms as if they were my own. Thanks to Xianling's favor last year this time, the place was blooming with various chrysanthemums. Golden chrysanthemums like golden peony, yellow crane's feathers, golden peacock, white ones like moon beneath, jade peony, purples like by Jiangxia, double flying swallows, reds like beauty's red, sea cloud red, and light reds like Buddha's smile, red powder ball. Each one was a prized variety. Among the chrysanthemum clouds, Meizhuang's cheeks bore a newlywed's shy smile, her satisfaction evident. She softly said, "His Majesty has been quite considerate to me." Indeed, she was more radiant than the flowers. But time is fleeting. In just a year, the once splendid scene no longer existed in Kunjitang. The thin soles of the maid's shoes made a peculiar crunching sound on the fallen leaves and overgrown grass, bringing a sensation of decay with the autumn. The dew on the grass wet the shoes under the moonlight. As Meizhuang fell out of favor, the servants in the palace became increasingly lazy, leading to overgrown weeds and withering plants. With the autumn breeze, the courtyard felt even more desolate and forlorn, leaving only the autumn moon to cast its gentle glow on the lush weeds. Upon entering the inner chamber, I saw Meizhuang standing at the doorway, extending her hands towards me from afar. A surge of warmth filled my eyes and I nearly shed a tear. I hurriedly took a few steps forward and firmly held her hands. Meizhuang's hands were exceptionally cold. Before I could speak, my vision blurred, and tears began to fall uncontrollably. Meizhuang too sobbed softly. After examining me closely, she managed a weak smile and said, "It's all right. It's all right. Feng Ruo kept sending word that you were doing well, but I didn't believe it. Now seeing you, I feel relieved." I mustered a smile and said, "I'm fine. I was just worried about you." As Feng Ruo stepped out to keep watch, I noticed how Meizhuang had lost her former fullness, her thin hands clutching mine as we walked into the inner chamber. Stepping inside, I was taken aback by a pervasive scent of decay. Seeing my expression, Meizhuang gave a sorrowful smile and said, "This place is no longer the Kunjitang of the past." I couldn't help but be surprised. Even though you still hold your title, it's excessive for the palace to be in such disrepair. Those servants have gone too far. Meizhuang lit the red candles in the room one by one and said, "Empress Hua is in power, and all those servants know how to flatter those above and step on those below. They've been treating me horribly. If it weren't for Feng Ruo's discreet help, I might not have made it to today." As she spoke, a tear fell into the candle flame, causing a faint hiss and a wisp of irritating white smoke. The candles, likely of poor quality, emitted a pungent smell when burned. Meizhuang couldn't help coughing, so I hurried to help her sit down. The bedding and curtains were dim and ambiguous in color, and even the teapot seemed unclean. I carefully wiped the tea set with a silk cloth before pouring a cup of tea. Under the candlelight, I was relieved to find that, although not of high quality, the tea was drinkable. After Meizhuang drank it all, I slowly said, "Don't worry. I will plead with the emperor to release you as soon as possible." I said this without much confidence, feeling somewhat guilty. I had no idea when Xianling would release Meizhuang. But for now, all I could do was comfort her and try to ease her heavy heart. Meizhuang just scoffed, seemingly indifferent. A waning crescent moon shone through the window, its dim glow spreading like veiled pearl light, with the scent of sparse vegetation slowly drifting in. The flickering candlelight emitted a pungent wax smell, and red tears dripped onto the candle holder, like a sigh of sorrow, reflecting on the heavily dust-laden brocade curtains. It mirrored the desolation in both Meizhuang's and my hearts, lost in the dim light. After a while, Meizhuang seemed to calm down a bit and quietly said, "Fenghua told me that you weren't implicated because of me, which gave me some relief. Fortunately, you have Lingrong now, so you're not fighting alone." She paused, gazing out at the withered chrysanthemums neglected in the garden, then turned back and asked faintly, "Does the emperor like Lingrong very much?" I was momentarily stunned before replying, "Not particularly, but certainly more than the likes of Chao Jieyu." Meizhuang simply hummed in agreement, "That's quite good already. But Lingrong is timid and afraid of getting involved in conflicts. Even though she's favored, you'll still need to make decisions for her." I agreed, noticing her emaciated figure. I couldn't help saying, "Don't be angry with those servants. What's most important is that you take care of yourself. You must have heard the commotion outside today. It was somewhat of a relief for you." Meizhuang nodded. "I heard it. But she might not be so easy to deal with." I sighed. "We can only take one step at a time." My gaze gradually fell on her still flat abdomen, and I couldn't help but ask, "What really happened with your pregnancy that day?" Meizhuang smiled sadly. "Everyone says I feigned pregnancy for favor. Do you think so too?" She instinctively touched her flat abdomen and said, "With the favor I had at that time, why would I need to pretend to be pregnant and scheme for more favor?" I calmly said, "You wouldn't need to resort to such measures. With your favor at that time, getting pregnant was only a matter of time. There was no need for such an act." Meizhuang sighed deeply. "It's good that you understand. Sister, they deliberately made you believe you were pregnant, to bask in all the glory and favor, and then accused you of feigning pregnancy for favor." I sighed, sharing my speculation. "Perhaps from the prescription Zhang Tai gave you, to his recommendation of Liu Ben, everything was orchestrated by someone. They exploited your eager desire for a child to trap you, and then at the right moment, they pulled the rug out from under you," Meizhuang said. "They had set this trap from the start, just waiting for me to walk into it." She clenched the handkerchief in her hand. "It's all because I was incompetent." Tears streamed down from her mournful and angry eyes. "Until Fulling brought out the blood-stained clothes, I didn't realize I wasn't actually pregnant." In her grief and anger, her nails, which were 3 inches long, snapped with a light crack. I was startled as her eyes filled with a sharp hatred. "They even schemed against me using the matter of the imperial heir." Remembering Meizhuang's elation upon hearing of her pregnancy, I couldn't help but feel somber. She had so desperately wanted a child to comfort her loneliness in the cold nights, and to secure the emperor's favor and her family's honor. I tried to console her. What's done is done, and dwelling on it won't help. Even I was almost fooled by them. I had even thought of supporting Empress Hua to manage the inner palace. If I hadn't lured her into the trap today, Lingrong and I would be in jeopardy in the future. "I've heard everything clearly from here," Meizhuang said despairingly. "I'm already useless, I just hope not to drag you down with me." After wiping her tears, she continued, "It would be best if you can save me from this situation, but don't force it if it's not possible. You're alone in managing everything, you must be careful not to end up like me." My heart warmed even more, and I wanted to cry, but fearing that it would upset Meizhuang further, I finally looked up and forcefully held back my tears. In the dim palace, the shadows of ancient trees sway on the window screens like the emaciated claws of specters. The cries of autumn insects in the deep of night grow ever more isolated and chilling, stirring a sense of desolation in one's heart. I tried to say, "His Majesty he," but I couldn't continue. Xian Ling's treatment of Mei Zhuang had left me deeply disheartened. The saying, "When the rabbit dies, the fox grieves. When the lips are gone, the teeth will be cold," resonated with me. I could no longer contain my disappointment and sorrow over the past and slowly said, "Perhaps His Majesty indeed isn't the virtuous partner we had hoped for in our youth. It seems that dream won't come true." "Virtuous partner?" Mei Zhuang scoffed bitterly. "Even the wives and concubines of commoners know that a virtuous partner is someone a woman looks up to for a lifetime." She bit her lip in anger. "Has he ever been someone you and I could look up to or rely on?" Her voice grew more pitiful, weighed down by the unbearable memories. "In our youth we spent long days idly in our boudoir, merely hoping to marry a husband we desired. To wake up to him in spring mornings, to guess riddles by lamplight on cold nights, to stand side by side adding incense while appreciating books and paintings, to walk on the moss with our shadows side by side as the years pass. Even though I knew I was to marry a king and couldn't expect the intimate conversations and companionship of a secluded boudoir, I still hoped he would be true and cherish me." Mei Zhuang's voice choked with emotion, her every word burning into my heart, drawing out a sourness that rose to my throat. These words, once playful banter in the boudoir, were also the sincerest hopes of young women. I tried to hold back tears and reassured her. "Don't worry, I've already sent people to investigate the plot against you. There should be results soon. Just be patient. When the truth comes to light, His Majesty will surely make amends and vindicate you." Mei Zhuang's sorrowful smile in the moonlight held a hint of disdain. "Compensate for the injustice and pain of these days? As if he could. He cherished me in the palm of his hand only to cast me aside like a worn-out shoe. His Majesty is indeed fickle, not sparing a thought for our past." A vague fear crept into my heart, indescribable and overwhelming, as if my heart was a leaf adrift at sea, tossed by the waves gradually sinking. Mei Zhuang gazed at me and said, "Perhaps my words are harsh to you now, but how can you understand the bitterness of being as fallen as I am?" She paused, then continued, "Living in the dilapidated Kunjitang has made me see things clearly. The Emperor's favor is fleeting." Seeing my increasingly troubled look, she said lightly, "But His Majesty treats you well, you won't end up like me. Don't try to convince me. Leaving here would only be to preserve the Shun family. The Emperor." She gave a cold laugh and said no more. I wanted to say more, but Feng Ruo knocked on the door, whispering from outside, "Please, my lady, come out quickly. The guard's drug effect will soon wear off, and it would be troublesome if we're discovered." I hurriedly wiped away my tears. "Take care of yourself. I will find a way to save you." Mei Zhuang tightened her grip on my hand. "Take care as well," Feng Ruo urged again from outside, and after a few more reluctant admonitions, I had to leave hastily. The night of the autumn day with its thin mist, spread through the layered palaces and chambers of Zio City, like the most secretive hands searching every cold or bustling corner and tower within the deep palace for secrets and schemes, leaving one perpetually unsettled. I stealthily avoided the palace guards on their night patrol and made my way to the small boat that Xiao Lianzi had arranged for me in advance, slipping into the depths of the lotus flowers along the winding stone path.
Follow us to avoid getting lost and enjoy endless exciting stories. For more content, please go to the Story Wall homepage to view more exciting novels.